The key thing that I'm finding with the engagement factor is actually to keep yourself to being authentic. And being authentic online means that you don't try and be something other than who you are just because you're online. It's all about being authentic, genuine, your true self when you do any sort of virtual engagement.
Hey, innovators, I get to sit down and chat with the infamous Rich Bachelor himself. He is quite a global organizational change management expert. I would also call him a bit of a guru, and he really is a disruptor, and he's brilliant beyond belief. I've known him for years, and he has so many great insights to share. And as per usual, he never fails. He's entertaining on top of that. You know, we're always told to embrace change, but this COVID-19 situation has definitely been more than most people have bargained for. So Rich and I end up just sitting down and chatting about how do you navigate change when it's so disruptive and it's so uncertain and it's just so crazy. And, you know, what does that look like? So we chat about what exactly organizational change management is and how it's the really important, you know, to change with the people, not to people. We talk and laugh about epic fails. We talk about the difference between education and training and engagement. And he really gets down and introduces me to his friend Carl, which you are definitely going to want as something in your back pocket. And then we talk about how do you engage people in this virtual world, how to do stakeholder management virtually, because it's a very different reality. And how do you have more impact and influence in your daily lives and at work or wherever it is, all virtually. And more importantly, we talk a lot about the change curve and how right now it's okay to not be okay. And give yourself permission to be okay with feeling not okay and having those down days. And we talk about so much more. Plus, I end up sharing something about what I'm currently curious about. And I don't think it's quite what anyone expects. Anyways, check out the episode. I can't wait to hear your feedback. Organizational change management is truly one of those essential business life skills that everyone should master. It will really help build your confidence in your own secret sauce. Until then, please stay safe and healthy. And as always, I can't wait to hear your feedback. Welcome to the Can Innovate podcast. We focus on providing you with timeless professional development secrets and essential business life skills in a mini bite-sized format. I'm unlocking the vault and sharing best practices that management consultants have been using for decades. We're unapologetically curious. Enjoy. So, innovators, I'm pretty excited because I get to talk to Mr. Richard Batchelor, and I've had him on the podcast before, and we always have the most insightful, fascinating, fun conversations. And Richard is really one of the most brilliant people I know because he actually is one of the specialists in organizational change management, and we're going to talk all about that and, you know, and the COVID situation and how we can navigate. So, welcome, Richard. I am super stoked.
Oh, thank you. I'm really pleased to be here. But I do have to jump in with you at one moment there because you're calling me Richard and it's really rich between us as friends. So I think you should really stick to the rich between the two of us because I think we know ourselves well enough.
Oh, I love it. All right, Rich, we are game on. So COVID, right?
Yeah.
What a doozy. You know, we're in week 11 and, you know, it's amazing to me how much people have had to transition into this virtual environment and they're trying to stabilize their, you know, businesses and everything else. But I'm thinking that organizational change management has a bigger need more now than ever before. And I wanted to get your expert opinion.
Sure. And yeah, it's fascinating for me how much activity is going on with organizations having to transition, transform, you know, whatever that type of transition is. And, you know, over the last couple of years or so, I've spent a lot of time focusing on the whole preparedness needed by organizations for disruptive change, that VUCA world stuff, and the whole sort of unexpected stuff coming along. So I kind of feel a little bit of like, if you've been listening over a little while, you should be ready for this. But maybe not everybody's been listening quite as well as they should have been. So I'm finding now that we're doing a lot of, hand-holding support mechanisms and such like within the change community, because people are not able to actually focus so easily on the changes they need to do because everything else is kind of spinning around them. It's a bit like, getting caught up in the sort of cyclone that's going on of everything that's happening, and people are trying to focus on, what do I actually need to do? What am I doing now today? How is this organization going to keep surviving going forward for the next few months? Lots of questions, lots of stuff, and it's definitely keeping me busy.
Yeah, you know what? I can imagine because, and you're right. You have been talking about disruptive change for as long as I can remember. And you've been trying to get organizations and people to really be able to think about that differently. Well, you know what? I think we're definitely in that use case as we speak. But for our listeners out there, they may not understand what organizational change management is. Would you be able to kind of give us a little bit of an overview so people can understand?
Okay, well, I'm going to give you two definitions. One is my easy piece, which is actually going back to what was asked of me, my very first change management effort and actual project that I was asked to support. And I was basically called in by the operations manager and said, so we're closing these few offices down. People are not going to be too happy about this. So what I want your role to be is go make people happy about things they're not so happy about. So I think that was kind of a good description, but it is about people. And I think when we talk about organizational change management, the whole sort of strategy approach towards people-focused transformations and all that sort of space, for me, it's really about supporting people and navigating through the change with those people coming along for the ride. It's not about doing change to people, but doing change with people and getting them as part of that engaged process to take forward. And there's a whole raft of things that come into that stuff. But my sort of three anchor points that I often refer to is it's all about communication, education, and engagement, because those are the key areas that people need to actually get involved with, understand, and get on board with, really, to actually enable them to take forward any change. So for me, whatever you talk about in terms of OCM, etc., it's all about getting on board with the engagement, the education, the communication, so people come along for the ride with you and nobody gets left behind.
I love your description, by all means. And it's so true. It's change with the people. It's not something they're doing to us or we're doing to them. It is something we're doing together. And it really makes a difference about having that look of things at different levels of how things are impacting them. And it's crazy because, now with COVID-19 and this whole big, huge change, like there's such a huge, bigger need for it. And yet, I still feel like the only thing people understand about OCM or change management is that it's about communication, and they kind of miss the other pieces of it, or I hear that change management is just training. I'm like, nope, that's not either, right? And, and it's kind of really hard to describe it, but I always found it a way to say that every project that fails is because of the lack of organizational change management.
Absolutely. I think, and that's a good point that you raised there, because I always have one of those kind of weird statements that I say with folks is that, when you look at project management, projects, initiatives, whatever you want to call, I always say to them, you can make a change happen without change management, but it'll fail. Mm-hmm. If you make a change happen with change management, it'll succeed. So make it with, not without.
Yes. And I think they forget it's all about the end user adoption, right? At the end of the day, that's how you've been successful.
Oh, absolutely. And that's another big thing. I love that you brought up the adoption word here, because for me, that's the biggest failing of so many projects. They implement the new without getting people to adopt what's actually happening with the new.
It's so true. And it's amazing. And it happens all of the time. But Richard, I was thinking more about this whole COVID situation, about really, yes, communications and so on, but how do you do engagement in this type of environment where some people are still struggling to be working from home all the time or being in this virtual world, and some people are really enjoying it and they're just happy to kind of get on with stuff and get moving, but there's still that, engagement piece of really connecting with people.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not comfortable. It's not easy for a lot of people. And I find that sort of different personalities and different types of people have to work differently on that engagement process because, we have the kind of, whether we talk introvert, extrovert, more comfortable in groups, less comfortable in groups, things like that, whatever it may be, the way you can describe people. But the key thing that I'm finding with the engagement factor is actually to keep yourself to being authentic. And being authentic online means that you don't try and be something other than who you are just because you're online. It's all about being authentic, genuine, your true self when you do any sort of virtual engagement. And I kind of have this thing because, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of the stuff as we go through today about sort of learning activities and how we've migrated so much to a virtual learning environment for people. But for me, one of the key things is understanding the difference between online and virtual. Because when we do things online, we're often doing things online that are just about, self-led. You do it under your own sort of steam. You just go on there, you browse the web, you pull up some stuff, that sort of stuff. That's doing something online. But when you do something in a virtual environment, you're creating a space online for people to interact and engage. You're using all these wonderful tools that are out there, whatever it is, you go to meetings, your WebExes, Zoom, and to Zoom has almost become a verb now over this whole period of time, so whatever these tools are that you're using to connect with people in a virtual environment, make sure that you're creating that space for them to connect virtually, that you are doing things that put cameras on and see people, that people know what's expected of them, and you treat it in just the same way as you would do as if you were walking into a meeting room to have an engagement conversation or going to sit down next to somebody and have a chat about how do you feel about these things. Exactly the same way. Don't try and make it something it's not, or try and use tools or techniques that are just alien to you, because that's the stuff that you need to do. Keep to what you're safe and secure with doing, because that'll be your true self when you're doing this stuff.
Oh, I love that. The true self. Okay, but you got to tell me, Rich, have you seen some really big epic fails?
Well, there's some that's probably a little bit more, I wouldn't even say PG-13, maybe a bit further beyond that as well in some of the stuff that goes on. But it's funny you mention that about fails, because I think the biggest challenge that I see with people in the virtual connecting and things that people kind of make mistakes over is that they get a bit too controlling. And they start trying to say, no, your turn, no, your turn, no, your turn, no, your turn, rather than actually allowing conversation happen naturally. And I've got to say that some of the most funniest things I've seen in meetings and conversations have been where you have the one person who tries to assert their alpha authority over the meeting. And you can just see, it's like, you can see everybody's face. You can see all the rolling eyes here going on. You can see the person clicking their pen, waiting for this person to finish their power trip and everything. It's like, just let it go, be okay with it. And then, of course, the other biggest thing as well is, if you're going to show anything off your computer, make sure you don't show anything you don't want people to see on your computer at the same time. We've seen a few hidden tabs that maybe weren't as hidden as they should have been on people's screen sharing and things like that. And you think, I really know a little bit too much about you now, so please keep that to yourself.
Yes, it is so true. It's actually really funny because this happened to a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
I love those stories, right? But anyways, they were using they were actually doing a meeting, and it was between two people, and they were actually having a lot of fun. And, so they were doing screenshots with each other, kind of thing, of what it looks like and stuff like that. Anyways, what they accidentally didn't realize is when they were sharing a screenshot of them actually their banter back and forth because they were just, trying to energize people. They didn't realize that they actually was recording it. And when they went to go and share the picture, they shared the recording on one of their actual websites itself.
Oh,
yeah, because it's a simple button, right? Like it's usually it's a simple accident that is bound to happen, and so I've seen that too. It's like people just being super excited and not thinking about just double checking what they're actually delivering out there, and which button they're pressing.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And you do read some further horror stories about what some people have done and things like that. And, remembering when to switch off the camera is also very good because we don't really want to see some naked flesh on camera at various times as well. So.
Oh, I'm so with you on that. One of the things I find really interesting, especially in this time, it's, I used to do a drive-by by somebody's desk or, by getting coffee and be able to have those impromptu conversations. And, it was a great tool to be able to leverage, to kind of do some stakeholder management. Hey, just heard this or, been aware. Do you have any tips about how we can do stakeholder management in this type of environment?
Yeah, sure. And I think this is about making sure that you've got some prep work being done. I'm a big advocate for the kind of instant messenger type activities that you can just kind of drop things in, whether it's like a Slack channel or some of the other sort of messenger stuff, where you can just have people connected to it and you can almost just randomly drop things in to encourage conversations or pop in and do things with people. The other thing as well is, we get so caught up sometimes in the virtual stuff and doing things online. We forget that sometimes just a text message is what's needed and, just pop on a phone call with somebody or, do that sort of stuff. We don't always have to have a visual piece to actually be asking people questions and finding out things like that. But my biggest thing I will say and my biggest recommendation is, and it's no different really whether you're doing in this environment or before, is be prepared for the conversation. Do that preparation for what you want to find out from the person so that you're going in with a purpose. You're not just going in for anything too casual. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't present it in a way that's more natural, that sort of relaxed approach. But don't do things just for the sake of doing things. Find out from people and also just find out with things like, are people interested in doing, virtual coffee chats? Are people interested in maybe the more virtual happy hour type setup or whatever it may be? And have a little bit more of that informal engagement activities going on. I did a great session a couple of weeks back with a group of folks where we actually, and it was a group of people I was working with on some other stuff and yet one of the many plates I have spinning. But we actually did some improv games for a couple of hours and we did them online and we actually practiced some improvisation techniques in an online environment. And we did it on the basis that, yes, it was going to be a bit of fun and it was going to just get a bit of relaxation from people. But it also brought out a greater understanding of what people were more comfortable with and what people were less comfortable with and how they actually related and interacted with people. And just bringing that bit of fun into the situation, you can actually learn so much more about people when they start being themselves, not who they think you want them to be.
That's awesome. So how would I do an improv game? Like, is that comedy or?
Certain elements of it are comedy, but I think, and you've got to be willing to have a good laugh at yourself. And for me, that's part of this whole challenge at the moment is, building your own personal resilience is actually about being able to laugh at yourself when things foul up because it happens. So, just laugh it out. But yeah, doing things where you can actually, so I'll give you an example of one activity that we did. It's a very simple one. And we just do the activity of in my house or join me if you'd like to or whatever the thing would be. And you have everybody on screen, everybody's camera is switched on at the beginning. And then one person starts the round and they just say something like, so join me if you'd like to share a cooked dinner tonight. And what happens is everybody switches off their camera and then the only people who want to join that person switch on their camera. Whoever the first person is that switches on their camera takes the baton to ask the next question. Mm-hmm. And it's a really great way of actually building team spirit and getting that connectivity between people, because you're learning a little bit about people beyond the actual professional environment, but you're also learning about their way that they react and respond. And you get to understand after a little while. There was, I think, about 14 of us on this session, and there's a couple of people who kind of stay quiet in the background, so you have to prod them a little bit to say, oh, I haven't heard anything from you, Sue. Do you want to actually come in here and take a turn on that stuff so that you don't miss out and you have the same experience as everybody else? And you just kind of have that situation, and it takes a little bit of thinking and planning, but no more than about 10 minutes of planning, just to make sure that you've got your almost like a process map ready for the session, ready in your head, and then run with it. And that's a very simple, very easy little exercise to do, and builds up team working. And also, where we're building work with virtual teams, it's a really good way to build the rapport with a virtual team.
I love that. See, and I bet you would get some really good creativity going out too. So from that.
Oh yeah.
It would be awesome. But you know what? I am the queen at laughing at myself. In fact, I find myself that I laugh at myself by myself most of the time, because I still think I'm funny, even though I'm probably not.
That's okay. As long as you think you're funny, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks.
You're so kind, Rich. You're so kind. But there's still a lot of people that are still struggling with this change that's happening with this COVID, Some of the kind of, novelties worn off a little bit, Mm-hmm. I think people got excited because they got to work from home. They didn't have to get, put their makeup on, right? They didn't have to do those things, a big long commute, right? And all those things. And then, and then everyone started into the baking, right? So everyone starts baking everywhere. And then I think now if people are starting to kind of the reality, especially when they're talking about the wave 2 that's coming and so on, people are really struggling. Do you have any tips about what some people, bosses, organizations need to think about?
Absolutely. And I think it goes back to, and I'll blend a few things. It goes back a little bit to what I was saying at the very beginning about doing change with people rather than to people. One of the biggest challenges we've had with the whole COVID situation is it's felt like it's something being done to us. So we kind of have that instant sort of, energy sap of, somebody's put something on top of me and contained me and, made me fall into a sort of setup. And then what's happened is we go through that period of, okay, I can look at the bright side of this. But then when it goes on so long, it's a bit like being on the hamster wheel. After about 10 circuits of the hamster wheel, you get a bit bored. And now we're into sort of week 10 and 11. We're kind of going, there's got to be more to life than this. How do I actually make things exciting, make things interesting? And how do I actually cope with what's going on? And I think there's a few pieces. And one of the things that I've been using as a sort of reference piece is I introduce people to my friend Carl. My friend Carl is CARL, and CARL is an acronym for curiosity, agility, resilience, and leadership. And it's all about the 4 tenets, I think, that people need to be applying in the workplace, in a virtual workplace, going forward now to help people navigate this much more successfully. And the key to that really starts with a C, because it's curiosity. And curiosity is all about being able to question and ask and feel confident doing that, because curiosity in itself brings confidence. So many organizations, so many people have been used to the compliant mindset, shall we say, and no, let's not rock the boat. But what we've actually got is an opportunity where things have been disrupted. We've got more than evolution. We've got a revolution on our hands. So we can actually ask the questions to be innovative and say, well, could I do this differently? Could I do that differently? And I think, to the L from the CARL, the leadership piece is not just self-leadership, but leadership in organizations, is encouraging that curiosity to come out. this is a perfect chance to show how much they value employees, how much they can actually bring into the workplace and challenge the way they do things, and how there's potential for the technology and the new experience. You know, I see so many people going and still getting excited because it's like, oh my, I can see you on the computer screen. I didn't realize I could see you on the computer screen. And some of us who've been doing this for 10 or 12 years or more kind of go, yeah, really? But these people are excited, and there's lots of people in organizations that are excited about this. So I think, you know, we can actually get energy, positive energy building with people by giving them things to get excited about and encouraging that curiosity and excitement to keep going. You know, being agile about these things is about allowing people to flex and change. You know, give people ownership of what's expected to be done of them so that they can build it round their working day. You know, let's stop talking about work-life balance now because we don't have one. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about work-life integration. How are we integrating what we need to do for work into the rest of our day? Because we may have opportunities to dip in for an hour and dip out for an hour. You know, maybe there's a little bit of homeschooling that needs to be done at various times, or whatever else is going on for people. So give the opportunity for people to have a bit more agility around their timing and time frame, and show that you actually value the work they do, not the clock watching type aspect, so that gives them another positive energy. And then, of course, the resiliency piece that I mentioned. And, you know what, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because I think it's probably the most common thing I've seen conversations about going on through all of this is about helping people to be resilient in everything. But for me, the key thing to that resilience piece with everybody at the moment is just accepting that it's okay to not be okay about this. Stop trying to be perfect about stuff. It's okay to be okay, not okay, and just deal with as it's good enough. So let go of that desire to do everything perfect, and all that sort of stuff that needs to be done can actually just be let go of a bit more. You know, as you say, you mentioned not doing the makeup. Well, so what? Why was there an expectation to do the makeup before anyway? It's all about that societal pressure that doesn't apply now we're in a virtual workplace. So, you know, let your resilience shine through by actually being yourself and letting go of things that you don't need to do. So ask questions, be a bit more agile with your timekeeping, and let yourself lead through the change that you're dealing with, and embracing of it, I think, is probably a good word for it, and make the most of the opportunity it presents and focus on that potential rather than getting pulled down into the challenge of what it takes away or maybe makes you lose from the situation.
No, I love this. That's what I really love about, you know, especially when you talk about curiosity versus compliance, right? Because it really does happen over and over and over again. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. As opposed to, oh my gosh, I'm so curious about this. Or I wonder what if. And, you know, it's amazing that in this time of right now, we should be really encouraging a lot more curiosities and, you know, and getting people to come up with new ideas more now than ever before, because, you know, why not? It's going to, not to your point, it's going to create excitement and everything else. Mm-hmm. But, you know, it's funny because, you know, someone was asking because they, you know, they have known me for a long time, and they know I'm always, you know, somewhat productive of something all the time. They have no idea how much stuff I binge on Netflix and everything else, and that I've embraced the video game world because I've never had that flexibility to be able to do that. But I was having a coffee chat, and one of the girls asked me, she said, what have you been learning recently? And I started laughing. I said, I'm scared to tell you. And they all started laughing on the phone, right? And they're like, what? So I said, I've always wanted to learn how to put on fake eyelashes. And they were laughing so hard because they were expecting me to come out about this book or this or that. And here I wanted to play around with playing with fake eyelashes. That does not look like I have another mustache or, you know, a unibrow. But, you know, so but it was that back to that human nature and being authentic and genuine. It does that. I'm saying you don't have to be productive all the time, and you need to be able to kind of want to browse and see what other people are doing or other companies are doing, and start to really think about what if and what else, like what else can we do? Mm-hmm. And, you know, and yeah, so I definitely agree with you. Like, well, first of all, I agree with you in a lot of things, Rich, but I do love your friend Carl.
Yes. I think it's a nice, easy reference, and I've used him a few times as a little blue beanie man that just pops up every now and again to remind people. So you'll see it probably on some of the post podcast resources. You'll see him pop up on some stuff.
Well, Rich, you always are a wealth of information, and I love tapping into your brain. And one of the things that I think that people don't understand is if they didn't understand organizational change management, and it doesn't matter if you're a leader or you run your own company or whatever it is an essential business life skill that everybody needs to have.
Absolutely.
And it's one of those arts that, it's very hard for people to comprehend, but it's one of those things where I tell people it's magic because people don't know what the secret trick is, like how to do that trick. And you always look like a rock star. And I get that all the time from people saying, I don't know how you do it. And I think to myself, it's a lot of work. You just don't realize what's happening behind the scenes. And, and it's such an amazing skill that I think people really need to learn more about and get more curious about, because they can make so much impact, not only just in, their personal lives and their relationships, but to their careers, right? Like getting promoted and all of those things. And I think it's something that people should get a little bit more curious about and really get more insightful about what kind of techniques that, the media industry has been using for decades, and the PR and all those guys, they really know how to make those kind of impact and influence. And so it's one of those things that, you've been teaching for decades about this stuff. And, I've had tons of people and, and staff that I've sent over to your courses, and they're brilliant beyond belief, and it's worth the investment.
Oh, well, I thank you for the kind words, but, I shouldn't say but, I should say and, as I keep on being reminded to say, I just love sharing my knowledge and sharing my experience with people, but there isn't really a secret sauce, I don't think, to doing this. It's sheer hard work, but recognizing that sheer hard work needs to be done productively. I created the Certified Change Agent program a few years back, which has, now I've had, over 500 people go through that in the last sort of 5 years or so. And, all the stuff that I do in educating people in the change management space, help them to understand organizational design, organizational change, even down to having conversations about the role of leadership and things like that. It's really about behavioral life skills applications in so many ways. And the potential benefits of doing this stuff in so many organizations. And I've worked with organizations of like 15 people to help them do these things. And also I've done like 150,000 people as well at times. So, all sorts of different ranges of people can benefit from it. But when it comes down to it, your biggest asset in any organization is the people that you have there. So you really want to make the most of what those people can do. And when your organization needs to refocus, pivot, reshape, whatever it is, you want those people to continue to be the best asset for you. And that's where the organizational change management skills come in. It's helping to influence, coax, persuade, bring people on board and understand the whole human psyche that's needed to bring people forward and recognize the why we are changing so that they realize that there's a benefit to it to move things forward. Because I tell you this, you're going to struggle if you don't bring those people on.
And you know what? I have to say that's really wise words and advice, because that is so true beyond belief. Now, Rich, yes. How can people get more education, since we talked about communication, education, and engagement on organizational change management?
All right. So I will clarify to begin with as well, and I'm glad you picked up on its education, because we so often fall into the trap of referring to things as training, and we have to recognize that training is part of education, but not the same as, because when we talk about education, we talk about allowing people to learn in a whole range of different ways. So for me, what I do with some of the courses and the workshops I do is I have some stuff that's facilitated learning, And by that, I mean that people learn in a more group environment, doing activities and engagement activities. They learn about the skill sets and things like that. My certified change agent is typical of that. And a couple of the other courses, I do a certified change leader now for the more deeper and more strategic focus for people as well. But then there's also things like the need for people to recognize that self-learning can be done. So, having online courses, even going and watching a YouTube video can be learning as well. That can also be part of that experience of how people can learn. So from my point of view, if you want to learn stuff that I've been doing, and I know there's lots of stuff I've been involved with, I was one of the founders of the Association of Change Management Professionals. So I've been pushing this stuff out and the need for engagement, and there's lots of good stuff that they have. But yes, do go and look up the website. So the website Capillary Consulting has a learning setup, or you can look up capillarylearning.com as well, and that will give you a focus on all the actual learning activities that we have and are available. And of course, connecting with me is always a good thing. Mm-hmm. It's easy to find me on most of the stuff. There's not many Rich Bachelors that you can find that are actually ones that are willing to be professional about it. So that's one thing that you can actually connect with me on LinkedIn and things like that as well. I'm always happy to have conversations, as you know, Sapna, from many years of conversations that we've had together about this space. I just genuinely want people to learn and understand the true benefits of it so that they can actually apply it in their workplace and take things forward. Because I think, the change agent program, particularly the change agency, some of the best feedbacks I've had from people is people saying that they hadn't realized until they'd been to my course that actually it's not just about organizational change management, but organizational change management is about agency with people. And that really meant something to me, because it's about making people aware of what they can do. It's all about maximizing human potential.
I love it. Well, I'm already on your website, and for our listeners out there, I'm going to send you the links in your show notes. It's easy, click away, and Rich's email address. He's brilliant. And in fact, I already saw a couple of courses that I'm going to take myself because I love learning. I can't help it. It's my kryptonite. Oh no, wait, kryptonite is actually the opposite. It makes me weak. No, it's the opposite.
I know where you were coming from on that side of stuff. And one of the interesting pieces that I've been doing with all of this as well is, of course, because you're in a virtual world, is I've migrated everything into a virtual environment. And I've been having some great success and some great fun having virtual learning activities with people as well. And people really recognizing that actually I can learn this in a really cool way by joining a group online to do this stuff as well. So, a lot of the stuff, it's not just about the old school get in a classroom type stuff. That's actually the least like me as well. But the whole virtual space as well at the moment.
I'm with you. And by the way, I already know anything that you touch is always a good, fun experience anyways. So it's going to be a good time. So like I said, I've already found a couple of courses I'm going to definitely register in. And I'll make sure all of you guys have that link in your show notes. So thank you, Rich. Honestly, once again, you are amazing. And I cannot wait to have you back again.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure having a conversation with you.
Thank you so much for joining and listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or any other episode, please share with your friends and colleagues. You can share on social media, the email link, the newsletter, and so on. Let's continue to support these Canadian innovators and help them really grow into bigger brands. Awareness and knowledge is totally key. Anyways, I can't wait to talk to you next week. Cheers.